Welcome to the program. Hello, I'm your host, Ron Whitlock. Children's health care advocates from across the Lone Star State of Texas are blasting President Bush for vetoing a bipartisan bill that would have dramatically expanded the children's health insurance program across the nation. Congress now is working on either overriding the presidential veto or coming up with a bipartisan compromise in the $15 to $25 billion number to fund children's health insurance's expansion. SCHIP is a joint state-federal effort that subsidizes health coverage for 6.6 million people, mainly children from families who work and earn too much to qualify for Medicaid, but not enough money to afford their own private health care coverage. Now, the Democrats, who control Congress with significant support from Republicans, passed the legislation to add $35 billion over a 5-year period to allow an additional 4 million children, 1 million from Texas, into the program. It would be funded by raising the federal excise cigarette tax by 61 cents to $1 per pack. President Bush argues that the Democrat bill is too costly and it takes the program too far beyond its original intent of helping the poor and would entice people now covered in the private sector to switch their government coverage. Bush has proposed a $5 billion increase in funding for CHIP. Texas' 2 United States senators split their vote on SCHIP. Kay Bailey Hutchison, the senior senator, wants to run for governor in Texas. She voted for the $35 billion measure. Texas junior senator John Cornyn voted against the SCHIP measure in Congress, siding with President Bush at the White House, who ultimately vetoed the bill. On this program now, Texas State Senators Lucio and Hinojosa will tell you what the Children's Health Insurance Program involves and why it's important, and the political significance of what's going on at the nation's capital. Also, both of these powerful and influential senators say that Senator Cornyn's no vote on the bipartisan CHIP bill, especially in view of his yes vote to build the border wall along the Rio Grande River, hurts his chances for re-election to the United States Senate. Senator Cornyn defends his vote during our second and fourth segments of the program today, so stay tuned. Now, Senator Eddie Lucio tells you and I about the SCHIP vote in the nation's capital. Your reaction on the two senators, one for CHIP, one opposed CHIP, and now going back for some kind of a compromise for the White House in order to, unless they're able to override the veto, which at this point doesn't appear likely.
I think, first of all, people need to look back at history. I just remembered when President Bush was governor of Texas, before he left for his run for the presidency, he could have easily asked the federal government for CHIP money, and he didn't do it. We would have gotten millions of dollars for Texas, and his failure to request that obviously, put us in a situation where we lost millions and millions of dollars that Texas would have received with a simple letter of request from the governor of the state. Back then, in the mid 90s, what happened then is that those monies that would have come to Texas had Governor Bush requested them now went to other states in the country. What he's done now is something similar because the Congress has voted to approve this. The U.S. representatives, all our representatives voted for it. I'm pretty sure. I don't even have to check that record. But I was very pleased to see Kay Bailey Hutchison obviously vote for that bill.
Disappointed in Senator Cornyn?
I'm disappointed because Senator Cornyn has been an incredible friend over the years. He's been a former Attorney General for the state, Supreme Court Justice. He knows this great state. He knows what the needs are here, and I think that that might have been a vote that will cost him some support, unfortunately for him. But the biggest disappointment is obviously the president, who had a chance to make that bill a reality, sign it into law, and he vetoed it. So we're back to where we were a few years ago. Instead of progressing, we're regressing. And we could have added, as I mentioned, 6 million new enrollees, children in our country, 1 million of which would have come from Texas, and that's bad news for our state.
$35 billion number, $5 billion per year, $1 per pack for cigarettes, going to pay it predominantly. President Bush has now vetoed it. Senator Cornyn voted against it. Senator K. Bailey Hutchison voted for it. Now we're faced with a situation of compromise. Why do you think the President and Senator Cornyn are both saying publicly that their opposition is based on they do not want to have a universal, bureaucratized, federal government managed healthcare system? That's their primary reason for wanting to not approve this SCHIP program.
Right. Well, that's what the president's. That's what his. His response was. That's what he's saying publicly. Personally, I don't believe that might be the case. It's election year. It's a year where many Republicans, a lot of people in our country are expecting those that belong to their party to vote very conservatively and be more prudent with their tax dollar. I think that this certainly would have been a good cause to look at it. We're going to spend $1 billion a week in the war. We can certainly spend $7 billion a year, here domestically to help the children of working class families. This is the backbone of our society, our workforce. And if we can't extend a hand to help them make ends meet and to help them enroll their children on healthcare insurance plans that are unaffordable as they are today, then something's wrong. I very constructively at this point criticize my friend. The president's been my friend. Over the years, General Cornyn, as I still call him, he's a senator now, been my friend. But in my opinion, these were two bad votes, and I would hope that they would reconsider for the sake of the children of our country.
On what basis would you suggest that Senator Cornyn and President Bush reconsider their opposition to SCHIP?
On the basis that it's needed, and the basis that it's the right thing to do, and the basis that there will be millions of children still without health care insurance. New York put their foot forward, and they were going to pass a bill based on this federal CHIP bill passing, increasing their federal poverty level to 400% of poverty level. That meant that in a family of four in New York that earn a little over $65,000 or below, that they would qualify. Here in Texas, it's 200% of federal level. So we're talking $40,000, family of four. Now we all know what the cost of living is out there, and that might seem like, well, that's a lot of money, but it's not. When you have four children and a mom and pop, that depend on $40,000 to be able to make ends meet. Anyway, I don't have to outline that. I think people that are listening understand what the cost of living is, and I think our wages should be where people can get paid a decent wage, but they should also have benefits. A lot of our businesses don't even offer health care benefits. Major companies in our community don't offer health care insurance for their employees. And a lot of them don't even hire them full time, so they won't have to put them into a health care program. A lot of our employees in the Valley are part-time, so that their employers don't have to pay health care insurance benefits. And I understand, as a small businessman, how difficult that is. I know the cost of health care, but we need to, in a situation like this one, where we had an opportunity at the federal level where the whole country can come into play, where the whole country can chip in to the CHIP program, and we failed to do it. But yet, our priorities are as such where, we're spending tens and hundreds of billions of dollars in homeland security, and yet our domestic issues go by the wayside.
Texas State Representative Eddie Lucio III says that he has contacted every member of the Texas congressional delegation, and he has urged them to vote to override President George Bush's veto on the Children's Health Insurance Program Reauthorization Act. He has told the Rio Grande Guardian that our kids are going to end up in our already overcrowded emergency rooms, and our representatives in Washington must recognize that fact. He says further, Texans should contact Senators Hutchinson and Cornyn and let them know that you support the Children's Health Insurance Program. To contact either of your United States senators or other elected officials to either show support for or opposition to SCHIP, go to valleynewsline.tv. The current SCHIP program's funding, improved during the last Texas legislative session, is secure. But now Congress is seeking to override President George Bush's veto and receive an additional funding that will cover 1 million more Texas children. Now, these are children of working poor families, and they could receive health care under the new program if, in fact, a compromise is reached or the veto overridden. Texas State Senator Juan Hinojosa weighs in on the debate as Congress wrestles over whether CHIP's expansion should be at President Bush's $5 billion level, or Senator John Cornyn's $10 billion level, or at the $35 billion level, which Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson voted for. Our interview with Senator John Cornyn, explaining his position on CHIP, immediately follows the interview with Senator Hinojosa.
Well, I think President Bush and Senator Cornyn have the priorities all wrong. Here they voted for a $1 trillion tax cut to the richest of the rich, and yet they cannot find $35 billion to keep our children healthy and provide them with proper health care. It is a shame. It's really a shame.
Knowing President Bush the way you do and working with him when he was governor in the state of Texas, how would you suggest that those negotiators work to seek a compromise that'll help these children who need these SCHIP funds to get them, 1 million of them being Texas children, on CHIP rolls?
Well, I think President Bush needs to be talked to in terms of down-to-earth needs of working families. He's forgotten about the needs of working families. I will tell you that we need to keep President Bush away from some of his more hardcore right-wing advisors who have no feelings and no sense and no touch for the health care and the needs of our children. One thing about President Bush, he talks about being a conservative, being a person who cares about working families, yet his actions speak louder than words. He needs to back those words with action and support children's health care for working families.
It's going to hurt the Republican Party even more.
Definitely. For one thing, right now, the Iraqi war is costing us about $5.5 billion a month. And we're looking at a cost of over $700 billion. And the $35 billion for the Children's Health Program would have been funded by a cigarette tax. It would not have increased the deficit at all.
So what does this mean about the situation as it relates to Texas Republicans, with Kay Bailey voting for SCHIP and the $35 billion, Cornyn voting against it, and the President of the United States, former governor of Texas, vetoing it?
I think Senator Cornyn is out of touch with the voters of the state of Texas, and so is President Bush, just by looking at the polls and what they show in terms of support in this country. He has very little support because he doesn't really care about working families. Senator Hutchinson voted the right way. She understands the importance of health care. She understands how important it is to keep our children healthy so they can attend school and get an education. And she understands the needs of working families.
Senator Hinojosa has challenged you and says you're out of touch with your Texas constituents because of your SCHIP vote. Your response to Senator Hinojosa?
Well, I'm not going to respond to Senator Hinojosa. It's purely a political comment. And, you know, there's plenty of time for politics. I'm here in the Valley, as I always have been, to try to solve problems. With regard to the SCHIP vote, I voted for a 40% increase in spending to help poor kids get insurance.
Going into the next few weeks of compromise, trying to come up with something that the president will not veto, you understand from your staff that you're in the $10 million area for increase of CHIP. Is that correct?
Well, I support, as I said, a 40% increase over the current number. I wish we would focus on how to reach more poor kids. We have 700,000 kids in Texas who are eligible for Medicaid or SCHIP who are not currently being provided that service. Let's focus on them. Right now in 14 states, adults are benefiting from this program, and in some places, families making up to $82,000 a year. So my focus is on trying to make sure that those low-income kids get the health care they need. That's one thing we all agree on.
State Representative Eddie Lucio III of Brownsville says he's contacted every member of the Texas congressional delegation, urged them to vote to override President Bush's veto. He also encourages everyone to contact Senators Hutchinson and Cornyn at the nation's capital to override the veto also. To contact either of these senators, go to valleynewsline.tv, click on their email address, and you can do so to show your support or your opposition to SCHIP. Texas State Senator Eddie Lucio says that children's health insurance takes care of the health care needs of our nation's workforce, and it's important.
You know, you don't have to be a Republican to really stand up for family values or be pro-life as I am. I believe that those are basic issues that anyone of any party should be able to stand up for and support. This is a basic right. Being able to see a doctor, being able to check into a hospital, to me it's a basic right. It's a fundamental right that the people of this great country should be able to have. We should be able to provide for those resources as needed, because our country is the most powerful country in the world and one of the richest countries in the world. And we have the means of being able to assist people in time of need. No matter what happens, we're still the greatest country in the world, but we can be greater, especially when it comes to addressing the needs domestically for the families of this country, the working class families of this country. You take away the workforce of any business and they can't open up. I don't care what business it is, a business of 2 employees or 2,000. You take away that backbone and that business goes down. So we need to protect, we need to do everything we can to support and assist the families of this great country and this wonderful state that we happen to be fortunate to live in, Texas. And we can do that, but it's going to take great leaders at the top to have the compassion that they so boldly talk about having, to show it at the right time, and this was the right time to show it.
Texas State Senator Eddie Lucio says that U.S. Senator John Cornyn is now very vulnerable to re-election defeat. Senator Lucio saw, as you may or may not recall, his own friend Senator Madela voted out of office and losing his seat at the state capitol after Carlos Uriste blamed Madela for the chip cuts in Austin back in 2003. Senator Lucio, we talked with Senator Cornyn recently about his vote for building the border wall, the border fence. This is his reaction. Senator, your supporters are concerned and your potential opponents are salivating over your votes to support the President of the United States and your party on the border fence vote.
My position is that nothing gets built unless and until it's demonstrated to be necessary, unless it's demonstrated that there are no other available options, and that primarily what we ought to be doing is looking at things like more border patrol, technology, and things like that. And then there's, you know, when you talk to people here who live along the river, you know, you come up with, I think, some pretty interesting solutions. I think there are things we can do that are more creative and collaborative without Washington dictating something that is people along the border don't want and which may not be ultimately necessary.
The Border Patrol came to Brownsville and to the Rio Grande Valley, as you know, recently, and explained to all of us that all they're looking for and expect out of a fence is a few seconds, no more than 5 minutes delay of getting over that fence.
I think let's use the natural barrier that God gave us and use that if we can to provide the help the Border Patrol needs to do their job. I think what we need to do is look for the most effective, most efficient, most cost-effective solution. And I think there have been some very legitimate questions raised as to whether that border fence is the best solution.
As you saw, we asked him and explained to him that there were many of his adversaries salivating over his vote for the border wall, his proponents and supporters concerned about his vote for the border wall. Now he's voted against children's health insurance on a national level to restore children's health insurance to 1 million Texas children. Do you think his re-election chances are even further diminished? And are you, what's your prognosis about his standing and re-electability?
If there was ever a chance to defeat a major office holder in this state in the last 10 years, this is it. Because of those 2 votes and possibly others that are not on the table that will probably be researched by the opponents. But it's still going to take someone running against him that can light the fire under the people of this great state, to get them out and vote, to make them believe that they will be in good hands with that person. Right now, you have 2 running for the Democratic nominee. One has very deep pockets, Mr. Watts, and then Mr. Noriega is a very popular veteran of the Iraq War, legislator, who probably will give Mr. Watts a major run for his money without any money, without any of his personal money. But that's going to be interesting, and then I think it's like anything else. That individual needs to convince the people of Texas that Mr. Cornyn needs to move on, and basically because he might have lost touch with the people of this state. On the wall issue, it's just unbelievable.
We encourage you to let your elected officials know, especially Senators Hutchison and Cornyn, why you either support or oppose expanding the children's health insurance program. To do so, go to valleynewsline.tv, click on their email address, and give them your opinion. Till next time, adios.